My parents threw a sweet 16 for my sister and forgot my 21st birthday. While they planned balloons and a ballroom for Chloe, my name never came up. No card, no cake, just silence. That's when I realized they didn't forget. They just didn't care. I was never the kind of girl who needed a parade on her birthday. Just some takeout, a movie, and maybe a hug from my mom. That's it. But even that was apparently too much to ask. It started 5 days before I turned 21. I got home early from work and heard my parents in the living room, voices hushed but excited. I paused by the stairs, then slowly leaned toward the doorway. What I heard made my stomach drop. "We could do pink and gold this time, something elegant," my mom was saying. "Chloe deserves a real sweet 16, even if it's a few months late." "Yeah, and the ballroom at the community center is still available," my dad added. "She'll love it. She needs something to lift her spirits." My sister Chloe had turned 16 back in April. The real party had been cancelled because she'd gotten suspended from school for vaping in the locker room. They'd said she needed to earn it back. I guess she did, somehow. Meanwhile, my 21st was in 5 days. Not a single word had been said about it. I stood there frozen. Not from anger at first, more like confusion. Had they forgotten? I took a step into the room and tried to keep my voice light. "Hey, was there any plan for my birthday?" They both turned toward me. My mom blinked like she'd been caught stealing. My dad shifted awkwardly. "Oh, Ava," my mom said, voice soft but dismissive. "We thought it might be better to just keep things low-key this year. You're so mature. Chloe's going through a fragile stage right now." "Yeah," Dad added. "We didn't want to stir up jealousy or make her feel worse. It wasn't just about the birthday. Not really. It was the way they said it, like it made perfect sense. Like I should be proud to take another emotional hit in silence." I nodded slowly, even smiled. Then I went upstairs and closed my door gently behind me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. There wasn't any new hurt in what they'd done. It was the same pain I'd carried for years, only this time it was exposed like a raw nerve. They didn't even try to pretend I mattered. That night, I opened a blank document and titled it Escape Plan. I listed my savings, my part-time hours, my scholarship refund, and a few rentals I'd bookmarked near campus. I remembered Mrs. Lee from church. She rented out a room to students and always asked me how my classes were going. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to shout, "Look at me!" like Chloe always did. I was just going to leave. Quietly. Intentionally. Like a ghost who finally realized she'd been dead in this house for years. My parents had made their choice. I was making mine. I turned 21 on a Sunday. No cards. No cake. Not even a distracted, "Happy birthday," tossed my way over cereal. My mom was busy ironing chair covers for Chloe's upcoming party. My dad was fixing a light fixture in the garage. Chloe was still asleep at noon. I waited until the clock hit 11 a.m. Then I walked into the kitchen, placed my keys on the counter, and spoke clearly. "I'm moving out today." My mom didn't even look up from the steamer. "Don't be dramatic, Ava." "I'm not. I already packed last night. I'm going to Mrs. Lee's. I've got a job and rent covered." Now she looked up, furrowed brow, lips tightening. "This is about the party, isn't it?" "No. It's about everything." My dad came in, rubbing grease from his fingers with a towel. "We're not kicking you out, you know. You don't have to throw a tantrum." There it was. A tantrum. Because calmly leaving a household where I'd been invisible for 2 decades was obviously a childish outburst. I met his eyes. "I'm not asking for permission. I just didn't want to vanish without telling you." He sighed. "So you'll just abandon us? And Chloe?" I almost laughed. "You abandoned me years ago." There wasn't much else to say. I went upstairs, grabbed the last bag, and took one final look at the room where I taught myself not to cry too loudly. Where I'd studied by flashlight while Chloe screamed at Mom downstairs about some new injustice. Where I'd stayed quiet, small, grateful. I texted Mrs. Lee on my way. She greeted me at the door with a warm hug and a pot of jasmine tea. Her house smelled like old books and fried rice and comfort. My new room was tiny, just a bed, desk, and window, but it was mine. That night, I ate leftover dumplings with her at the kitchen table while she asked about my classes and told me about her late husband's obsession with crossword puzzles. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt safe. Seen. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy. But as I lay in bed staring at the cracked ceiling, I felt something crack open inside me too. A space for possibility. No one had ever fought for me before. Not even me. But now I was starting. I expected silence from my family, but Chloe texted the next day, "Mom says you'll be back by the weekend. She's already cleared your closet for decorations." I didn't respond. Because I wasn't coming back. The first few weeks felt like standing on one leg in a storm. Every part of me wobbled with uncertainty. My days were long, summer courses from 8 a.m. to noon, internship from 1 to 7, then closing shifts at a bookstore 3 nights a week. The rest of the time was for assignments, emails, and trying not to feel entirely alone. I didn't miss the house, I missed the illusion. The hope that one day they'd finally see me. But the quiet in Mrs. Lee's place, the kind that came with no judgment, gave me room to breathe. At my internship with Roast and Rise Coffee, I was one of 6 unpaid marketing interns. Most of us were tasked with dull spreadsheets or writing fake tweets. But one morning, the regional manager walked into our office in a panic. A major location had tanked after a menu overhaul and bad press from an allergen incident. Customers were leaving in droves. "Anyone here know design?" she asked, voice sharp with stress. I raised my hand before fear could stop me. "I know Canva. And I took a branding course last semester." She tossed me a USB. "Mock up a flyer that doesn't make us look like poison. If corporate likes it, you might actually get paid." I stayed late that night, fueled by cheap coffee and blind ambition. By the time I submitted the final draft, a bold, friendly, apology-infused redesign, I was half asleep on my keyboard. 2 days later, she called me into her office. They loved it. Corporate's rolling it out at 3 more stores. Starting Monday, you're part-time, $18 an hour. That little spark lit something big. For the first time, I saw my own value measured in more than silence. I started contributing to new campaigns, even leading a project on social media engagement. I scaled back my bookstore hours and finally dropped one class to focus better. I was still tired. Still lonely some nights. But that ache was different now. It wasn't the hollow kind you get from feeling erased. It was the soreness of growing. Once, I came home and found a note from Mrs. Lee on my door. "You look tired this morning. I left some soup in the fridge. Rest is part of progress." It made me cry. I didn't even know why at first. Maybe because it was the kind of care I used to beg for without words. And here it was, offered freely, no strings, no performance required. That's when I started writing again. Not for class. For me. Just short journal entries, honest, messy ones. It felt like reintroducing myself to someone I hadn't spoken to in years. I wasn't healed. I wasn't whole. But I was beginning to believe that I didn't need to be either to deserve a good life. I met Ethan at the coffee shop. He was a regular who always ordered an oat milk flat white and brought his own mug, a ceramic one with a chip in the handle and a small paint smear that looked like a thumbprint. The first time I commented on it, he smiled and said, "My mom made it. She's better at art than I am at conversation." But he wasn't awkward. He was kind. Consistent. He asked for my name the second week we spoke and actually remembered it. He asked how school was going, not in that filler way people do, but like he genuinely wanted to know. Slowly, cautiously, I let him in. By October, he had invited me to Thanksgiving with his family. I tried to decline politely, but he insisted. No one should spend Thanksgiving alone eating soup in a rented room. So I said yes. Walking into their home was like stepping into an alternate universe. There was laughter in the kitchen, mismatched chairs around the table, and 3 pies cooling on the windowsill like it was staged for a holiday movie. His mom gave me a hug that lasted a beat too long, in a good way. His dad made a dumb joke about cranberry sauce being a government conspiracy, and his sister shoved a glass of wine into my hand and said, "Thank you for getting Ethan to wear real pants." It felt wrong. Or maybe just unfamiliar. No one was performative. No one kept score. They just included me, like it was the most natural thing in the world. At one point, Ethan leaned over and said, "My mom keeps asking if you're the girl who made that apology coffee poster. She's obsessed." I laughed so hard I nearly choked on sweet potato casserole. Later that night, as I helped wash dishes, I scrolled Instagram and saw Chloe's story, a glittering, over-the-top party with a live DJ, custom neon signs, and a crowd of people I barely recognized. My mother beamed in every frame. My dad hovered nearby with a drink, laughing with some of Chloe's friends. They looked like the perfect parents. I wasn't even tagged. My stomach clenched. For a second, it all came rushing back, the bitterness, the ache, the ghost of who I'd been in that house. But then Ethan's mom tapped my shoulder and handed me a towel. "You okay, Ava?" I looked around, at the warm kitchen, at people who saw me, liked me, maybe even loved me for reasons that had nothing to do with obligation or blood. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I actually am." That night, I cried for the version of me that still longed for something she'd never get. Then I breathed it out. And I let it go. Because some families are chosen. And sometimes, that's the only kind that ever really matters. It was almost a year later when I saw Chloe again. I was waiting in line at the Student Union Cafe, half asleep and craving caffeine, when I heard my name. "Ava?" I turned and saw her, hair in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes, hoodie 2 sizes too big. She looked small. Deflated. Nothing like the overstyled, smug girl who used to roll her eyes when I dared speak during dinner. "Hey," I said cautiously. She forced a smile. I didn't think you'd still be at this school." "Still here. Final year." She hesitated, then blurted, "I'm failing 2 classes. I might lose my scholarship." I blinked. Not because I didn't believe it, but because Chloe never admitted to failing anything. At least, not out loud. She glanced down. "I don't really know how to study. Or organize life, I guess." The pause between us stretched thin. I knew that tone. I'd used it once myself, the tone of someone who didn't know how to ask for help because they'd never been expected to. "Okay," I said softly. "Let's sit." We found a corner table, and she poured it all out. How our parents had started ignoring her the second she wasn't thriving. How they still talked about me like I was going through a phase. How their love had conditions, and she was just now understanding what that meant. I wanted to feel smug. I didn't. I felt sad, but also cautious. "What exactly are you asking me for, Chloe?" She looked up, eyes wet but clear. "Help. Just help. Not forgiveness. I don't deserve that yet." I agreed to meet her once a week, on my terms. I set boundaries. No dumping last-minute crises. No blaming anyone else. She agreed. She even kept showing up. We studied, built planners, worked through anxiety spirals. She still slipped sometimes, missed a session, made a lazy excuse, but I didn't let it derail me. I wasn't her babysitter. I was a sister learning how to love someone without losing myself again. One night, as we packed up, she said, "I used to hate how calm you were. I thought it was fake. But it was just survival, wasn't it?" I nodded. "Yeah." She looked away. "I wish I'd noticed sooner." "Me too," I said. "But you're here now. That counts for something." It didn't fix everything. But it cracked open a door. And for once, I didn't feel like I was the only one walking through it. By the time winter rolled around, my world looked nothing like the one I'd escaped from. I had been promoted to junior brand consultant at Roast and Rise after leading a holiday campaign that tripled engagement. My manager handed me a letter one afternoon with the company seal and a post-it that just said, "You're killing it." Inside was news I never expected, a presidential scholarship that would cover my final year, no more loans needed. I stared at it so long my coworkers thought I'd passed out. Mrs. Lee threw a dinner for me that night with homemade noodles and pineapple cake. Ethan brought flowers. His mom mailed me a scarf she'd knitted. I was surrounded by pride, by warmth, by people who wanted nothing from me but to keep going. And then Chloe hit bottom. It was almost midnight when she called. Slurring. Panicked. She'd gotten a DUI after a campus party and had no one else to call. I didn't hesitate. I picked her up from the station, sat with her while she cried, and brought her back to my place for the night. She was a mess. Makeup streaked. Shirt inside out. Her voice cracked as she admitted, "I thought I was better than this. I thought I was better than you." I said nothing. Just handed her a glass of water and a blanket. The next morning, she apologized. Really apologized. Not in that shallow, "Oops, my bad," way she used to. But with shame, regret, and a tremble in her voice I'd never heard before. "I don't want to be like them," she said quietly. I don't want to keep pretending I'm fine until I break again. She checked into counseling. She took academic probation seriously. She showed up to our study sessions early. I watched her fight, not for approval this time, but for herself. And just as Chloe started growing, our parents came crashing in. They found out about the DUI and called me in a fury. Not to ask how she was doing. Not to take any accountability. But to accuse me of dragging her down with my negative influence. You've filled her head with all this therapy garbage. My mother snapped. She used to be normal. Normal? I repeated. She was drowning. My dad chimed in. And you think you're better than us now, Ava? Just because you ran away and got lucky? I laughed bitterly. I didn't get lucky. I clawed my way out of a house that taught me love was a reward I'd never earn. They went silent. Then my mom said, if you want this family back together, you'll need to apologize. Both of you. It was Chloe who texted me after that. One sentence, let's go to dinner. I need to say something to their faces. And I agreed, not for them, but for her. Because I wasn't that scared, Silent's daughter anymore. And Chloe? She might finally be ready to stop being the golden one, and start being real. We met at a quiet restaurant just outside town, neutral ground. The kind with dim lighting and beige walls, where no one makes a scene because the table next to you is barely 6 inches away. Chloe and I arrived together. She wore a blazer, her hair brushed and eyes clear. I hadn't seen her look that composed since, ever. I wore black. Not for drama, just to feel steady. Our parents were already seated. My mom smiled tightly. My dad didn't bother. No one said anything for the first minute. The waiter came and took drink orders. I asked for water. Chloe asked for tea. My mom folded her hands. So, can we agree that what's happened this past year has been difficult for everyone? I said nothing. We've all made mistakes, she continued, but what matters is moving past them. Then she looked straight at me. If you're willing to apologize, Ava, we can try to rebuild this family. I stared at her. Not in shock, just clarity. They hadn't changed. They were still trying to bend the narrative, to make my leaving the problem instead of what drove me away. But before I could respond, Chloe spoke. No. My mother blinked. Excuse me? No. Chloe repeated, her voice firmer. Ava doesn't owe anyone an apology. My dad sat back, arms crossed. So now you're turning against us too? No, she said. I'm telling the truth. Ava didn't ruin anything. You did. You ignored her for years, made me the center of everything, and now that I've stopped pretending to be perfect, you want to blame her. My mom looked like she'd been slapped. We only ever did what we thought was best. No, Chloe snapped, her voice rising. You did what was easiest. And now I'm a mess and Ava's the only reason I didn't completely fall apart. She turned to me, eyes shining. You didn't owe me anything. And you still showed up. I never said thank you, but I mean it. Thank you? I swallowed hard. My dad stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. I think we're done here, I said quietly, rising with Chloe. My mom reached out across the table. Ava, wait. I pulled my hand back. I'm not angry. I'm just finished. We walked out without looking back. In the car, Chloe was quiet. Then she whispered. That was the first time I stood up to them. I glanced over and smiled. Felt good, didn't it? She nodded. Yeah. Terrifying. But good. That night, I sat at my desk with a blank page open again. This time, I titled it, Life Chosen. Because I was done waiting to be seen. I had built a family out of people who showed up without conditions. I had a job that challenged me, friends who listened, and a sister who was finally becoming her own person. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had something better, peace,